Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for Responsible Rationalization, Reducing the Cost of IT Operations. My name is Raleigh Gould, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. Our featured speakers are Steve Brazen, Managing Research Director at Enterprise Management Associates, and Gary Henderson, Director at ASG Technologies. Steve has 20 years of in-the-trenches experience in IT system support, engineering, and management for high technology, telecommunications, and financial institutions. Gary has over 35 years of IT experience. He is the Director of Product Management for ASG's market-leading Timon brand of performance management solutions. And before I hand things over to our featured speakers, I wanted today's audience to know that Steve and Gary will be dedicating the last few moments of today's presentation to answering your questions. You can log them anytime using the chat functionality. Also, today's event is being recorded, and you will receive a follow-up email from EMA tomorrow that will include the on-demand playback, a PDF of the speaker slides, and some additional resources. So I hope you will check that out. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn things over to our first featured speaker, Steve Brazen. Steve?
Thank you, Raleigh, and thank you all for joining us today for our discussion on how to reduce the cost of IT operations with processes for rationalization. In this presentation, we'll be revealing the key elements of a rationalization plan, as well as our prescriptive guide for transitioning from traditional chaotic IT environments to more cost-effective and efficient IT deployments. First, just want to take a quick look at our agenda for my portion of the presentation. We'll begin by identifying the most significant challenges to maintaining an IT infrastructure and support operations today. This will set the stage for us to talk about the value of rationalization, as well as the key elements that comprise a rationalization solution to streamline the efficiency, reliability, and performance of IT investments and their maintenance. Next, we'll reveal the individual steps based on industry-established best practices for adopting a rationalization solution. Anyone who has ever been responsible for managing a data center or business technology is intimately familiar with this particular axiom. IT is expensive. Most organizations think of IT as a bottomless money pit for business operation expenses. For instance, hardware costs. There's always a need for more servers, more storage, faster processors, higher availability, and greater reliability. Data center infrastructures also need to be supported with environmental controls such as power and cooling, as well as networking components, racks, and sensors. And of course, all this hardware is useless without the software to run on them, including operating systems and applications. Businesses typically purchase and maintain far more applications and licenses than they actually use or need. This is particularly true following mergers and acquisitions, when a significant amount of software is suddenly redundant. And software is not a one-time purchase either. Additional licenses need to be purchased to meet increasing business use. And new editions of software need to be purchased every few years to take advantage of platform enhancements and new features. Both hardware and software components need to be supported with maintenance contracts offered by their respective manufacturers to ensure availability of patches and prompt replacement or remediation in the event of an unexpected asset failure. And finally, organizations need to invest in the IT support organizations responsible for managing the day-to-day operations of an IT infrastructure, which includes not just the cost of the administrators themselves, but also the cost of all the tools and training they require to successfully manage the environment. And given that IT is the primary driver for most modern business performance and profitability, many organizations take a blank check approach to budgeting. Whatever IT needs to support a project, IT gets, which is kind of extraordinary when you think about it, because no other aspect of business functions this way. If your company is, for example, bringing in a new product to the market, you're not likely to hire a whole new team of marketers, accountants, and salesmen. You'll simply use the personnel you already have to support the new product. Now, the same concepts can be applied to IT. By applying well-established business management processes to IT implementations, it is possible to maximize your company's technology investments and get better return on investments. Okay, having said that, I know what you're thinking. If you reduce the cost of IT operations, won't that impact IT service availability? And on the surface, it really does seem like a catch-22. Lowering costs seems like it will reduce service quality, while expanding or improving services can be expected to increase costs. But most IT managers are actually pressured to do both at exactly the same time. Most frequently, IT organizations will err to the side of caution and overspend to ensure that they are meeting their SLA commitments. Now, for instance, they may purchase redundant hardware or software licenses just in case they may be needed, but will more likely just sit unused and obviously wasting valuable resources. Another example would be organizations that purchase all-inclusive software packages because they think they're achieving some sort of a discount from the vendor. However, if only half of the capabilities of these all-inclusive platforms are actually used, then they are actually paying more for IT service delivery than is actually necessary. Conversely, organizations that adopt solutions from multiple vendors are paying an unnecessary price in terms of diminished service quality. Maybe this example will sound familiar. For example, an accounting application critical to your business suddenly stops working. You call the software vendor and they blame it on an incompatible patch recently installed by another vendor. You contact that vendor and they blame the problem on an application subsystem like a database that requires them to install that particular patch. You contact that database vendor and they say they needed to resolve a compatibility issue with the original accounting program. So nobody wants to take ownership of the problem, and the various vendors won't talk to each other to resolve the core issue. Ultimately, it ends up being the company, not the vendors, who has to find a workaround to get the software back up and running. You can understand why independent vendors often do this. They don't want to be responsible for the time, effort, and cost of resolving your problems. And they don't want to be blamed for the fact that it occurred in the first place. But this unnecessary finger-pointing significantly reduces the mean time to resolution of business impacting problems. It can result in unnecessary cost overruns, and it can seriously impact business performance. The good news is that it is actually possible to overcome these challenges by increasing both the quality and efficiency of IT services while at the same time reducing costs. This is the core precept of what is called IT rationalization. Now, put simply, IT rationalization encompasses the essential processes for making informed decisions on the purchase and utilization of hardware and software in order to maximize their effectiveness and efficiency. Responsible cost reductions are achieved by ensuring the organization purchases exactly what it needs to meet business requirements and no more. And management of the IT ecosystem is greatly simplified by working with only one or a few vendors. IT rationalization best practices are designed to reduce the size of both the hardware and software footprints in order to simplify management and accelerate returns on investment. Consolidating software services onto a fewer number of applications, all supported by a single vendor, immediately reduces capital costs, since obviously there are fewer licenses to purchase and maintain. Also, purchasing the solutions collectively from a single provider means that the company can take advantage of bundled solutions and volume discount programs. Application consolidation also helps reduce software sprawl, freeing up servers and other resources that can be repurposed to support new or expanding business services. And that can substantially reduce hardware costs. Or alternatively, these unnecessary systems can be simply retired, eliminating any related maintenance and management costs. Through consolidation, business operations are also made more efficient which translates into greater cost effectiveness. Now, for instance, when IT administrators utilize a common set of tools that are integrated or designed to function in a similar way, they can adopt standardized practices that allow them to perform tasks rapidly and with greater effectiveness. Not only does this result in less time on performing mundane administrative tasks, it also reduces both the mean time to discovery and the mean time to resolution of problems and performance issues. And enabling event correlation across these product sets facilitates effective root cause analysis and proactive problem prevention. And of course, when a single vendor supports a complete set of related IT services, that unproductive finger pointing is no longer an issue. In the event of an unexpected system failure, the single supporting vendor clearly owns the problem and can be immediately pressured to find a solution. Rather than wasting time trying to pawn the problem off on someone else, the vendor is really incentivized to support you as their client. Beyond the direct value of IT departments, rationalization can also result in positive impacts to overall business performance. Now, for instance, think of how much less paperwork procurement and contract administrators have to manage when they only have to deal with a limited number of IT solution providers. And this creates a much closer working relationship between the vendor and the business. Unlike point product solution providers that you only hear from once they want to sell you something new, a rationalization vendor has an incentive to stay in contact with the business to ensure their requirements are being continuously met. It's simple math. Companies that adopt a number of products from a single vendor have much more buying power and influence over future development paths than organizations that only purchase a single product. Also, the standardizing business activities so that they can be performed on just a few key applications establishes processes that are predictable to the workforce. And this minimizes administration errors and helps to ensure the high performance, availability, and reliability of key business services. And the constant availability of high-performing software services directly empowers workers with more effective tools to enhance their productivity and drive innovation. And in this way, IT can be strategically aligned with business objectives, allowing it to create, enhance, and support business opportunities instead of being a burden on whatever limited business resources the company has. Effective IT serves the business, not the other way around. While rationalization initiatives can really be applied to any large system environment that supports complex software ecosystems, the benefits of the best practices have been proven to be particularly effective in mainframe environments because of the exceptionally large size and power of those systems. A mainframe is typically initially introduced to support a specific set of applications. But since the life cycle of a mainframe is so long, they tend to slowly accumulate more and more new and different applications over time to support changing business requirements. And this hodgepodge of software components from different solution providers almost subversively evolves into a complex ecosystem of independent but essential applications that are costly to maintain and cumbersome to manage. While this application sprawl would be limited on standalone servers that have comparatively small capacities, mainframes can excessively accumulate software over years or even decades before the complexity of the environment is even recognized as a problem. But by then, it is no longer practice to maintain the environment using traditional management processes. So because of this, rationalization practices that consolidate software deployments are especially applicable to mainframe environments and have been most frequently used for this purpose. However, there's really no reason that the same value could not be applied to other large system environments such as grid or cloud computing environments. It's just that these types of environments have really not been around as long as mainframes, and many are only now starting to deal with the challenges of application sprawl. So clearly, quantifiable value can be rapidly achieved from a rationalization initiative. But how should you actually introduce those process improvements? What are the actual steps for transitioning from out-of-control application environments to more pragmatic rationalization solutions. The most common mistake and a surefire recipe for failure is when organizations just jump in and start changing their software environments without a strategic plan. Business production environments can be severely disrupted or even disabled if transition processes are not performed responsibly. To help organizations ensure an IT performance and business productivity is maintained throughout the entire restructuring process, EMA has developed a prescriptive guide to enabling rationalization that leverages IT management best practices offered by the Information Technology Infrastructure Library, or ITIL for short. The ITIL transition model details optimal methods for introducing new services in a way that minimizes business risks. And a key precept of these recommendations is that services should be introduced systematically rather than all at once. And for each transition activity, sufficient time should be provided to ensure services successfully settle in and any unexpected problems are resolved before moving to additional transition steps. ITIL recommends the use of a Service Improvement Plan, or SIP, which breaks down transition activities into 4 distinct categories. The initiation starts the project and focuses on setting expectations, achieving executive buy-in, and establishing the scope of the project. Planning is where detail is assigned to the activities and assessments are made on which resources will be required to complete the project. Execution is the period during which the plan is carried out, and closure is where formal acceptance is achieved, validating the justification and support for the project. All 4 of these steps are essential for ensuring a smooth transition for process and environment improvements, and it may be necessary for more than one service improvement plan to be performed to completely facilitate a rationalization project. So to be clearer, I'll dive in a little bit deeper by providing an overview of rationalization transition tasks that should be performed for each step. Starting with initiation. This initial phase begins with defining the scope and goals of the rationalization project. Be very specific here. What are you trying to achieve? Is it cost reductions, service improvements, reducing management overhead? Carefully define your expectations will help you obtain management commitment and the necessary funding for the rationalization project. Knowledge is the key to success in making informed rationalization decisions. So it is important at this very early phase to collect data on all applicable hardware and software assets that will be included in the project. Details on their configuration, performance, and usage will help enable holistic visibility of the relevant IT ecosystems. All this collected data should be centrally stored so it can be analyzed to identify opportunities for resource consolidation. This is also a good time to identify any redundant, duplicate, or unnecessary applications or software elements that could be completely eliminated or repurposed. With this background information in place, solution providers can then be evaluated to find the ones that match most or all of the application requirements that are actively in use in your organization today. Select and commit to a single vendor that offers the most comprehensive solutions, support, and cost effectiveness applicable to your company's unique requirements. If you determine that you need to work with more than one vendor, then I recommend starting with the provider that supports the most essential services first, and then performing a separate SIP for each additional vendor. However, the goal really should be to work with as few vendors as possible, and ideally with only one vendor. The comprehensive data collection during the initial phase is also essential for the planning phase. A deeper review of the data will help identify the specific steps that will need to be performed to achieve rationalization goals. Now, for instance, which application can you merge or replace? The answers may not actually be immediately evident. So the use of analytics is essential during the data analysis to help identify cost-saving opportunities that would be difficult or impossible to discover through purely manual processes. Analytics can also be used to identify the root cause of any performance degradations or unnecessary cost overruns, allowing you to develop remediation steps that can be incorporated into the overall project plan. Now, clearly identify consolidation targets by looking for opportunities to replace legacy third-party software with functionally similar software offered by whoever you select to be your primary vendor. If the plan involves adopting new software services, you should document expected performance goals, capacity thresholds, and other requirements so that you can be sure to invest in solutions that ideally meet your needs. This will also serve as targets to verify that you have achieved your goals once the project is completed. You might also want to consider rationalizing across multiple systems. While most rationalization initiatives tend to focus on a single large system environment, such as a mainframe, a project plan can easily be widened to incorporate the consolidation of software from across a number of systems. For example, applications from several standalone servers could be consolidated into a single mainframe, which would not only reduce infrastructure complexity, it would also free up servers that could be retired or repurposed. The final project plan should be carefully documented along with all the specific roles and the support steps identified for business stakeholders, IT administrators, and the primary vendor, so that it's clearly understood who will be doing what during the execution process. Clearly, the primary vendor that you select will be an essential partner during the execution phase, and the level of support it provides will have a significant impact on how smoothly the implementation is performed. It is important to remember that each step in the plan should be initiated systematically, and sufficient time should be provided between steps to ensure success before progressing forward. Employ automation for the software migration and installation tasks whenever possible. Automation creates consistent and predictable deployments that are easy to maintain and problem solve. And every step in the plan, whether it's automated or performed manually, should be monitored and recorded to ensure they are completed as expected and to rapidly identify any unexpected problems. Also, monitor the execution processes, provides real clear accountability of anyone involved in the project. So if you know who is responsible for doing what. When the software installations or migrations are complete, any affected users should be trained on their proper use, and processes should be put in place for the ongoing support of the environment. Closure is commonly the most overlooked phase in a service implementation plan. But these tasks are at least as important as all that preceded them because they ensure the long-term viability of the rationalization deployment and ensure its continued value and cost effectiveness. Rigorous testing should be performed on all software installations to ensure they completed successfully and are functioning exactly as they were expected to. Periodic audits should also be performed on all these applications to ensure they are continuously available and perform within the parameters established during the planning phase. System and software capacities should be proactively monitored to ensure sufficient resources are always available to support existing and expected near future business requirements. And finally, recognizing that environments and business requirements are constantly changing. Organizations should continuously be looking for new rationalization opportunities that will initiate a new service improvement plan to enhance IT effectiveness and value even further. So to sum up all the key takeaways to consider, in most cases there will likely be some upfront investment in cost and effort to transition to a rationalization environment. But a careful review of most IT environments really reveals a wealth of opportunities for cost reductions that will rapidly achieve return on investments. Also, while cost savings may be the primary driver for introducing a rationalization solution, don't underestimate the value that can be achieved over time in improving business performance. And finally, I can't stress enough how important it is to partner with a reliable vendor on a rationalization project. The quality, experience, and support of the primary vendor will ultimately determine the success or failure of the project. So On that note, I'd like to turn it over to Gary to tell us a little bit about ASG's approach to rationalization. Gary?
Thank you, Steve. Just want to verify you can hear me.
Yep.
Okay. Hi, folks. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about ASG in our program, and we'll get going right away here. Our goals is to help customers save money. It's fundamentally the part of every business person we speak to these days is they're looking for ways to cut their costs and reduce the amount of effort they put into it. So make a good price with a smarter footprint. We've been doing this for years. ASG is one of those mouse that roared type of companies. We've been around since the mid-1980s. We have a portfolio of over 100 products covering a plethora of technologies. I'm in particular in our systems line of business, focused on IT operations, infrastructure, and performance type of technologies. But one thing I want to specify is we're a bit different than what our big brother competitors are doing, and that is we are the what I'll call the anti-cable company type approach. Cable companies, as you know, if you deal with purchasing TV bundles and things like that, are digital service providers that do the same thing. Basically, they give you, for example, 140 channels to watch on television. But most people don't watch 140 channels. They prefer an a la carte approach. Just give me what I want. But you can't buy that. And that's what we're seeing a lot in terms of the bigger companies like IBM and Computer Associates doing to their customers, and who, our customers. We have the same customers most often. What ASG wants to do is we can do that too. We can give you a bundled approach, but we can also give you an a la carte approach. So you can buy just what you want or need at a very flexible, very affordable price. So that is the key takeaway, besides what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, is what differentiates us. So Steve covered a lot of this, but as I mentioned, we're pretty much dealing with some of the bigger companies out there, IBM, BMC Software, CompuWare, and Computer Associates. And everybody knows everybody wants to reduce their costs. We've been hearing that story for many years now. They also want to simplify things. The administration, as Steve mentioned, reducing the number of vendors. That affects everything, contracts people. All the business units that get involved anytime there's a software evaluation or purchase. As you mentioned, also improves vendor support, because we have a bigger stake in the game now. So you guys can put pressure on us and make sure that we're meeting our obligations as well. And then, as I mentioned, co-term or software license agreements that are very flexible to meet your needs. The areas I want to focus on in the systems line of business are traditional mainframe products. We have three key areas: applications management, operations management, and performance management. And in the mainframe space, you folks are probably very familiar with interactive debuggers and file and data management products and source code management and lifecycle management, all those things that are typical in a development life cycle. In the operations space, we have many of the common tools used there. JCL management tools, where we automatically check JCL syntactically. We have tape management. We have the ability to transfer data across the enterprise. We have workload management, schedulers, documentation processes, and this covers both mainframe and distributed platforms. In the performance space, we have performance monitors, well-known brand, the Timon suite, that covers the full spectrum on the mainframe. And in addition to that, we have for reporting, capacity planning capabilities, our PerfMan brand of tools that covers both mainframe and distributed. So this is a key area of focus that we constantly see our customers saying, how can you save me money? And this is what this program is all about today. So what do you expect from this? So you would expect to see a significant cost reduction, reduced complexity, reduction in your run rates, meaning your maintenance costs, accelerate your efficiencies and eliminate redundancies. And that's a key here, because until you really start these programs, people know they probably have a lot of redundant software or software that they're not using. And once they really dig into this, they really unearth so much money that they're spending in duplication that they find huge savings. So it's really worth the effort. So how do we do this? We have a tool that will help you get started called our assessment tool. Help you track and identify some of the tools that you can replace with ASG products. You meet with the ASG team to make a deeper look. Most customers have some documentation on the software products that they have, either formally in a catalog or just a simple tracking mechanism in a spreadsheet. Usually your procurement department can help you a lot in identifying those. We'll discuss with you the technologies we have, show you presentations, do demos, and then get into proof of concept, identify what needs to be done, and then you can execute the plan and start enjoying that return on investment. So this is a little tool we developed across the systems line of business to help you identify what's out there in terms of the products that we can replace that you might own. First of all, you pick a discount. What are you shooting for? Almost everyone I talk to says they got some mandate from senior management saying, I need you to cut costs by 10%, 20% this year. Things are out of control, etc. So how we walk you through that is you pick what your goal is, then you pick the domain and walk through this. And if, in my case, I manage performance management products, so we basically have our mainframe suite here, and you pick the ones that you might be using from a competitor. You pick the product that you're using and how much your costs are annually spent on that product and when the contract is going to expire. And then when you've done that across all of these, and I just did it for one for simplicity's sake, you click the next step and we'll basically calculate your savings over the next few years right off the bat. You can print the results over here in the right-hand corner. This is private information to you. We have no access to anything you've entered here, so you don't have to worry about us snooping in on what you're doing. And we also have a button here where you can request a meeting with an ASG sales account rep to get things started. Some of our customer success stories. First of all, I'd like to say this is not new to us. This is business as usual. We've been doing this for many, many years. It's not always been called rationalization. That's a contemporary terminology. But it's become such a value to customers that having somebody actually run a rationalization program is important. But these are some of the brands that we've been doing business with, and some of which I can't name because we have to have sign-off permission, but very large brand names across the United States, Canada, Brazil, China, and the rest of the world. ASG is an international company. We have customers on every part of the planet with the exception of Antarctica. We leave that to the penguins. And so how do you find out more about this? We have on our ASG.com site an area for rationalization where you can get more information, including a white paper from EMA, and it grants you access to this calculator and all the things I just mentioned. With that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Raleigh, and we can go into the Q&A session.
Great. Thank you, Gary. I will also include this URL as part of the follow-up email that will be sent out tomorrow. Like I said at the beginning, you can log your questions using the chat functionality. Jumping into it, Steve, let's start off with you. The question is, how should I prioritize which applications should be rationalized first?
Yeah, that does tend to be a problem in most organizations. I mean, once you decide you're going to do a rationalization process, how do you decide which ones you want to combine? Once you get to that planning phase. Well, ITIL actually recommends 2 evaluation criteria when prioritizing process improvements, and I think they're very apt here and really can be applied to rationalization projects. The first of the two is to adopt improvements that will address the most critical pain points in your organization. So you'll want to prioritize the rationalization of applications that are the most costly or the most difficult to maintain. And second, ITIL recommends you look for opportunities to boost business productivity with new services and new capabilities. And you may find that by consolidating or integrating existing IT services that you will actually be able to establish new IT services that can be leveraged to boost business performance.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Jumping over to you, Gary, the first question for you is ASG professional services included for training and installation?
No, it is not included in the purchase price because it's a variable. It really depends on the scope of the project, which we are going to come in and give you a statement of work and price that out for you.
And a follow-on question is, we are retiring our mainframe in 1 to 5 years. I don't want to make a long-term commitment. What can you do to help?
Okay. ASG has very flexible plans. Besides the traditional perpetual license, we have term license agreements, basically a lease program. So if you're just not sure when this is going to get done, you can lease products from year to year.
Good to know. Thank you, Gary. Steve, jumping back over to you, how does rationalization reduce data center infrastructure costs?
Yeah, that's a good one. We certainly talk quite a bit about reducing software and hardware costs, but infrastructure should also not be overlooked. Rationalization initiatives enable data center consolidation by facilitating the migration of applications, of course, across multiple distributed servers to a large centralized server. Now, following this, servers that are unused can be simply turned off, and that would reduce overall power consumption and cooling requirements. And in fact, our research indicates that migrating applications from 10 servers to one large server, such as a mainframe, will result in a cost savings of about $5,000 per year on average from reduced energy consumption alone. So also, I think it's important to realize that sometimes it's not about reducing data center costs, but preventing them from growing, from increasing over time. By maximizing the value you are getting out of your existing investments, your hardware investments, you are preventing the unnecessary purchase of additional hardware along with all the infrastructure and maintenance costs that would be required to support the new equipment. So it can actually have a very profound influence, rationalization can have a profound influence on data center infrastructure costs as well as the hardware and software itself.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Jumping back over to you, Gary, you had kind of mentioned this in your presentation, but this individual wants to know, do we have to purchase a software bundle or can we pick just what we need?
You can do either. We're very flexible, and that's one of the key takeaways here is we will sell you a la carte what you want or need. I know that IBM and CA both come in typically now with large bundles which you cannot line item strike out anything you want. So let's say you have a favorite product that you're already using, not from IBM, and they provide their competitive tool. That creates a situation where now you have to create a business case to justify keeping the product that you know and love. And that doesn't always go over well with senior management. So the differentiator here with ASG is you can pick a package or you can pick individual products that you just need.
That's great. Thanks, Gary. Steve, we have one more question. It is, what are the most important characteristics I should look for when selecting a rationalization vendor?
That's a good one to finish on. Obviously, I think the most important thing to think about when you're looking at vendors, in this particular space, is do they offer a broad range of software solutions that specifically address most or all of your organization's requirements? So, and not only that, but ensuring, as Gary was talking earlier, that they are it is a modular approach rather than an all-inclusive approach to ensure that you buy just what you need and no more. Now, beyond that, I would rank reliability as the second most important consideration. It's not just to develop. It's not just enough to develop a rationalization plan. You need to be confident that the vendor will stand by the software it provides over the long term. You want to work with a vendor you can trust to rapidly respond to any problems that may arise, and a vendor that has the experience and knowledge to assist you through the migration process itself. A relationship with a rationalization vendor is more like a partnership. The vendor's success should be gauged by not just by the software sale itself, but by the performance improvements that your company achieves over the long term.
Thank you for that clarification. We don't have any additional questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. As I mentioned, you will be receiving a follow-up email from Enterprise Management Associates. It will include the on-demand webinar, a PDF of the speaker slides, and some of the additional resources that Gary mentioned on this landing page. I hope you'll check it out. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.